There are many ways that people and goods move around the country, but as we discussed before, the most ubiquitous form of transportation is the motor vehicle. All of those cars, trucks, and buses need a place to drive, so it's no surprise that roads are a major focus of transportation planning. In this lecture, we'll focus on arterial roads in 5 modules. First, issues, then functions of arterial roads, road safety, land use context, and finally, the conventional road hierarchy. Before we dive into all of that, let's first briefly review which agencies are responsible for planning, constructing, and maintaining the road network. At the national level, the New Zealand Transport Agency is responsible for all state highways. The NZTA also manages the National Land Transport Program. The local authorities, that's city and district councils, are responsible for local roads, that is, the public roads within their jurisdiction, which are not state highways. These agencies are distinct from the agencies that are involved in public transportation planning, and that's usually the responsibility of the regional councils. In Auckland Transport is responsible for the road network excluding state highways. As a note, all the major Auckland roadways tend to be state highways, and Auckland Transport is also responsible for public transportation planning. Another important distinction is a matter of terminology. As commuters, we often talk about how much time a trip may take. For instance, you may say you live 20 minutes from work or 5 minutes from the CBD, and this may generally be the case. However, in practice, you probably run into traffic at least a few times a week. Maybe it's a busy travel day, maybe there's a crash, or maybe a car broke down on the road, or maybe demand for the road you're traveling on has simply outgrown its capacity. This variation in travel time is referred to as travel time reliability or predictability. As a planner, the predictability of travel time becomes a critical issue. Imagine how frustrating it would be as a commuter if one day your commute was 15 minutes, and the next day it was, let's say, 45 minutes, and the day after that it was 30 minutes. And if these times were totally random on any given day, the problem of unpredictable travel times is magnified for industries that rely on roads for their business. If you are in the logistics or delivery industry, slow travel times occurring all the time are relatively easy to deal with. You can schedule drivers, guarantee delivery times, ensure truck and capacity availability, etc., around congestion or slow urban roads. The frustration to commuters and the expense to industry comes from a lack of ability to plan based on published or previously experienced travel times. As a planner, a major focus of road planning, and to some extent, public transportation planning, is ensuring travel time predictability. So what are the causes of unpredictable travel time? Well, to begin with, the existing road network is under pressure all the time from continued traffic and economic growth, and from often competing demands for the use of limited available road space. As our economy continues to grow year after year, so does the demand for more freight movement, which is carried primarily by trucks, and more employment, which is carried by personal automobile. This is a continued demand for that very limited amount of road space that's in a city and connects cities. Increasing traffic volumes have also resulted in increasing peak period traffic congestion, particularly at key intersections. As time has gone by, the time it takes to go through rush hour traffic has continued to expand. If we go back a couple of decades, the rush hour period often lasted from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and maybe 4 to 5:30. Today, that rush hour time, or the peak period of travel, is spreading out so that we encounter congestion at peak periods as early as 6 a.m. and as late as 7 p.m., sometimes even later, depending on weather and road conditions. As a result, traffic congestion has become a major issue affecting the region's economy. Another issue is that most of Auckland's older arterial roads are built in a 20.1 meter road reserve, especially along ridges. This is the same width that is used for many minor roads. So as a result, most arterials can only provide for a total of 4 through lanes of traffic. This severely limits how wide a road can be and how much traffic flow it can accommodate over time. Even in cases where roads can be expanded to accommodate multiple more lanes, these restrictions along ridges and in other places create bottlenecks in the system, further slowing down traffic. Imagine trying to get a lot of water through a funnel at one time. Pouring it fast through the top will only serve to slow down the overall flow of that water. The same is true with traffic flow. The more cars you try to get through on the road, the more congested and unpredictable it becomes. Another problem is fronting property has historically had direct access to most arterials. This means that arterials must accommodate both through traffic and traffic turning into or out of adjacent properties. The greater the number, as we technically call it, ingress and egress points, the greater the slowdown in traffic flow. Constant stopping and going leads to unpredictability, which leads to lower speeds over time. Additionally, parking has been permitted to serve the adjacent developments. This reduces an arterial's ability to serve its primary purpose of catering to the regional scale movement of people and goods. And simply put, road construction has just not kept pace with traffic growth, nor is it expected to in the future. It's very expensive, as we'll mention in a minute, to continue to expand the road network. With limited resources and limited time to expand roads and space, it's nearly impossible to accommodate all the expected future traffic. In addition, the purpose and function of many arterial roads have gradually been compromised over time. We call this functionally obsolete infrastructure. The infrastructure itself may work fine. Take, for example, a bridge. It may only have 1 or 2 through lanes, and it may have a very low overhang for crossing that bridge. A truck in the day that that bridge was constructed may have easily made it under that overhang. Fast forward 2 or 3 decades, and that truck has grown in height over time, and as a result, it can no longer pass over that bridge. While the bridge itself is in no danger of falling down, it no longer serves the purpose of accommodating truck traffic. That bridge is now obsolete. It no longer contributes what it once did to the network. Pressures from adjacent land use developments have also added to conflicts between through traffic and traffic entering and leaving driveways and side roads. The cumulative effect of increasing the number of access points can be very significant over time. Many of the things we do as planners to try and enhance travel time predictability also have an impact on other road users, the availability of other modes, and ultimately travel times by car. It requires a careful and nuanced approach to balancing the demand for car travel, the space needed to accommodate transit, and safe space for cyclists and pedestrians. Focusing too much on one mode can throw the entire road out of balance. For example, bus priority measures, such as dedicated bus lanes, can improve the ability of arterial roads to accommodate people efficiently, primarily by reducing the demand for personal automobile travel, while carrying more people in less space. Similarly, providing safe space for pedestrians and cyclists can reduce demand for auto travel and can increase throughput. However, greater emphasis on bus priority measures and the needs of cyclists and pedestrians can add to the pressures on arterial roads, many of which are relatively narrow with limited ability for expansion. For several years to come, continued population and economic growth is expected to result in increasing vehicle use despite higher use of public transport. Difficult and potentially unpopular decisions will have to be taken over the next few years to encourage changes in the patterns of use of public and private transport. It's a simple fact that for some arterials, major road widening is simply not an option, and public transport must be the primary means of accommodating future increases in peak period travel. The state highways and primary arterial road networks together make up about 4% of the overall road network. But state highways accommodate about 26% of vehicle travel, and the primary arterials cater to 13% of vehicle kilometers traveled. Improving the primary arterials for bus movement will reduce bus journey times, improve bus reliability, and encourage further patronage increases, which in turn will reduce congestion on road space available for other vehicles, including commercial vehicles. Primary arterials are responsible for approximately 24% of the region's road accidents. This probably reflects a conflict between the various roles of the network, including the level of vehicle access to the adjoining property, the pedestrian activity in key places, and the general transport function arterials serve. There are a number of issues related to crash rates on arterials. These can include speed, pedestrian safety measures or lack thereof, intersection design, the consumption of alcohol by motorists, roadside hazards, and the shape of the road or road geometry. The region's arterial roads need to be made safer and more inviting for pedestrians, public transport users, and cyclists. But this is an expensive venture. Roads are very expensive to build and maintain. For example, arterials cost in the range of $150,000 to $300,000 or more per kilometer to simply mark a carriageway. That is, without any reconfiguration of the road or expansion of the network, simply to restripe that road can cost upwards of $300,000 per kilometer. It can cost $4 million to $11 million or more per kilometer for projects that do involve widening the width of the road within an existing road reserve, just to create an additional 1 or 2 lanes of traffic. If there isn't any existing road reserve left for expansion, you can expect to pay $7 to $25 million or more per kilometer for these projects, which involve land acquisition and creating additional width equivalent to 1 or 2 traffic lanes. As projects get more complicated, the cost of that project skyrockets. More substantial projects, such as multi-lane boulevards with parallel service roads or new improved roads involving significant grade separation, including things like cut and cover driven tunnels or flyovers, may cost anywhere from $70 to $350 million per kilometer. So these are the major issues that we currently face when planning for our network of arterials. But this is certainly not a conclusive list. We'll spend some time talking a bit more about these issues in the next modules, and they will continue to crop up throughout the course.